Okay, picture this. Your next charcuterie board. You've got that rich prosciutto, maybe some nice salami laid out. Now, what if I told you that every single slice tells a story, not just about, tradition and amazing flavor, but a really complex story about cutting-edge science, big shifts between generations, even surprising financial strength, and that this whole story is actually working towards, well, a healthier planet and maybe a healthier you. Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're really going deep. We're plunging into the, let's face it, often misunderstood world of meat and cured meats. Specifically, we're zoning in on Italy. Now, the common story you hear, it often paints this industry with a pretty broad negative brush, right? Focusing on environmental impact. But our mission today is different. We want to cut through that simplified view. We're going to uncover how this exact industry is making some, pretty significant strides in sustainability. Some you might not expect, and what that actually means for the food choices you make every day. So for this deep dive, we've pulled together some really fascinating research. We've got a transdisciplinary book looking at the sustainable transition of the whole supply chain, plus detailed industry analyses and some really interesting studies on how younger generations are eating these days.
Exactly. And our goal isn't just to list facts.
Yeah.
It's to pull out the most powerful insights, sometimes the ones that seem a bit counterintuitive. We want to show the real complexity, the surprising innovations happening right now, basically give you a shortcut to really understanding what's on your plate and, its bigger impact.
Yeah.
The hidden story.
Okay, let's unpack this then. Food. It's way more than just fuel, isn't it? When we think about food, it's not just calories. It's like a powerful cultural marker. It shapes how we connect with the world. It expresses who we are. It can even push society to change. I mean, just think about your own eating habits. They reflect your lifestyle, your values, maybe even your family history.
That's such a key point. And the sources really back this up, showing how deeply our food habits are tangled up with, everything else. Our social context, our history. I mean, think about the COVID-19 pandemic. Something that obviously reshaped our lives, and definitely how and what we consumed. So yeah, understanding food isn't just about nutrition. It's about understanding ourselves, our society, the whole picture.
And speaking of society, let's zoom in on one particular group, Gen Z. Everyone talks about them driving change. So how do they see something traditional like cured meats? Are their habits changing? It feels like a space where old ways and new ideas might kind of clash.
That's a really good question, especially for an industry with so much tradition. Like, what pops into a young person's head when they think about deli meats? There was this survey, 339 Gen Z kids in Lombardy, Italy, and the results, really interesting, kind of a mix. On one side, you had words like hunger, tasty, cold cuts, the classic appeals, still taste good.
Right, the basics.
But then you also got words like cholesterol and fat. So it shows this blend. The traditional enjoyment is there, but alongside it, there's this definite growing health awareness.
It's not just what they think, it's what they do, right? Their buying habits. The survey showed over half, 54%, get their cured meats from supermarkets, convenience, I guess. And then about 30% go to a trusted shop, maybe a local deli, that personal touch. But only 8% buy directly from a breeder. Very small number. But here's the kicker. 91%, almost all of them eat deli meats with their family.
Yeah.
So that shows a huge family influence, right? Even if they're starting to make their own choices about where to buy, what they eat is still very much a family thing.
And what's really striking there, connecting it back, is that Gen Z often says they prioritize responsible consumption. They care about the how and the why behind their food, but they're often not the ones actually making the final buying decision in the household, especially the younger ones. So you get this interesting situation. They're curious, they care about the supply chain, sustainability, all that, but it doesn't always translate directly into their individual purchases. And actually, the younger Gen Z group, they were less optimistic about whether their personal choices could even make a difference. That's a bit different from, say, millennials.
It's a really crucial point. So their values are there, but their actual spending power in this area often gets filtered through the family shop. It means the choices you make, maybe as the parent or the main shopper, still have this big impact, shaping the whole food culture. Understanding that mix in Gen Z, the curiosity, but that sort of indirect influence it, helps us see how consumption changes happen. Every bite really does have a backstory and maybe a future impact. Okay, let's switch gears a bit and talk about the big topic that always comes up with me, the environmental side, the footprint. And this is where it gets really interesting because it's more complicated than the headlines often suggest. Sure, animal farming was vital for human development, no question. But it also has these complex interactions with the environment, some good, some not so good. It's not black and white.
Exactly. The sources pointed that agriculture, especially livestock, is responsible for a big chunk, about 93% of ammonia emissions in Europe.
Yeah.
And pig farming specifically. It contributes significantly to that ammonia, plus particulate matter, those tiny airborne particles, PM10, PM2.5, and yes, odors too. These are definitely real challenges the industry has to deal with.
And this is the important part. The industry isn't just sitting there. The Italian livestock sector, for instance, they've set some pretty ambitious goals. They're aiming to cut ammonia emissions by 16% and particulate matter by a huge 40%. By 2030, these are concrete targets.
Right. And to figure out how to hit those targets, they use this method called life cycle assessment, LCA. Think of it like a full environmental audit. From the very beginning of the farm, all the way to your plate, it maps everything out.
Okay.
And what LCA consistently shows is the biggest hotspot. It's feed production. Growing the crops to feed the animals. That's about 70% of the total greenhouse gas impact.
Wow, 70%.
Yeah. The manure management is next, around 20%. Energy, water, they play a role too, but feed is the dominant factor. So if you want to make a difference, that's what you use.
Okay, so knowing that, what are they actually doing to make things more sustainable? It can't just be about targets, right? There must be some science, some innovation involved.
Oh, absolutely. The research is driving some really significant progress. We're seeing some pretty cool innovations, like precision feeding. Basically, fine-tuning the animal's diet to reduce protein intake, which means less nitrogen and stuff in their waste.
Makes sense.
And genetics, breeding more efficient animals. Things like the feed conversion index, how much feed it takes to gain weight. Even a small improvement there, like 0.1 units, can cut the nitrogen excreted by like 230 grams per pick. That adds up.
Okay.
And then there are things like advanced barn designs, new ways to build them so there's less contact between the manure and the air. Plus, systems for removing manure more often, even the vacuum systems. These can slash ammonia emissions way down, maybe to like 0.5 kilo per animal per year. Real measurable stuff.
And beyond just the emissions and efficiency, there's the whole ethical side. Animal welfare. That seems to be getting more and more important to people, to you listening. The industry must be responding to that too.
Definitely. The EU actually has pretty clear rules about minimum space, what kind of flooring pigs need, enrichment materials, things to let them root around, bite, chew, act like pigs. And there's this broader idea gaining ground called One Health.
One Health.
Yeah, it basically recognizes that human health, animal health, and the health of the whole ecosystem are all connected. So under that idea, things like biosecurity, preventing disease spread, and precision farming become really key. They all cut down on disease outbreaks and, crucially, the need for antibiotics.
Okay, reducing antibiotic use is huge.
It is. And there are other things being looked at too, like immunocastration. It's an alternative to surgical castration, potentially better for welfare, maybe even economically and environmentally.
Yeah.
And interestingly, consumers of PDO products seem okay with it.
PDO protected designation of origin, those labels you see. Green shift. Let's zoom out a bit. We looked at data from nearly 1,992 Italian meat companies from 2017 to 2021. And what jumps out is that this sector, it's overwhelmingly small and medium-sized businesses, SMEs, they make up almost 98% of the total.
Wow, 98%.
Yeah, and micro firms, really tiny ones, are nearly a third of that. So think small, often family-run operations, not massive corporations.
And what's really fascinating is how adaptable they seem to be financially speaking, how resilient. I mean, despite all the challenges, especially during those tough pandemic years, 2020, 2021, they actually saw profitability go up. Their average EBITDA margin, that's basically their core operating profit as a slice of sales, it rose to over 6% in 2021. And they improved their financial independence too, better debt-to-equity ratios. They weren't just surviving, they seemed pretty agile.
That's seriously impressive, especially during a global pandemic. Why do you think that is? Is it just being small and nimble, or are these Italian companies doing something specific?
Well, being agile definitely helps, but the data suggests it's also about how they approach sustainability. It's often a journey, not like flipping a switch. The sources show a spectrum. About 43% take a pretty informal approach, another 25% are kind of in the middle with some formal initiatives, but only 7% are what you call systematic, really weaving sustainability into everything they do. It's core to their business.
Okay, so that's 7%. They're the real leaders here. What does that look like on the ground? How does sustainability actually give them an edge?
For that 7%, the innovative group, sustainability isn't just about compliance or cost. They see it as a competitive advantage. So they invest in real things, like comprehensive water recovery systems, photovoltaic panels for solar energy. There's this one company mentioned, Salumificio San Carlo. They now get 20% of their yearly energy needs from their own solar panels.
Wow.
So that shows how green investments can directly help the bottom line, save costs, and look good to customers. It's smart business.
And something else customers really want now is transparency, right? Especially knowing where the food comes from, provenance.
Absolutely.
And that seems built into the Italian tradition. The numbers are pretty stark. 87% of these companies use 100% Italian meat. And over 3/4, 76.6%, offer those PGI or PDO labeled products we talked about.
Right.
Those EU certifications are powerful guarantees of origin, quality, and often those traditional methods.
And this ties back nicely to the generational thing. It's where things really seem to come together.
Yeah.
You've got the younger generations taking over these family charcuterie businesses, and they get it. They explicitly see the value in sustainability. They're the ones investing more in environmental stuff, social improvements, and they're collaborating more, working with industry groups to push things forward together.
So it's not just inheriting a recipe, it's inheriting a responsibility to evolve.
Exactly. It's about keeping the tradition alive by making it sustainable for the future.
Okay, but there's a catch, isn't there? A challenge. A lot of these traditional places, they aren't big on marketing or communication. They might be doing amazing work, but if they're mostly selling business to business, we as consumers might not always hear about it.
That's a huge point. It makes it really hard to fight against greenwashing, vague or misleading environmental claims.
Right.
Gen Z especially, they have a really good antenna for that. They're super wary of it.
Right.
So these companies are doing the work, investing, changing. But if they don't communicate it clearly and transparently, consumers might miss it. Or worse, they might not trust it. That trust is so important.
So what does this all mean for you listening? If you want to support the genuinely sustainable players, well, you probably need to look beyond just the flashy labels. Maybe look for companies with clear, recognized certifications. Things like BRC or IFS. Those are tough international food safety and quality standards.
Good point.
Look for transparent traceability. Can they tell you exactly where the meat came from? And look for proof of commitment to animal welfare, to local sourcing. Your buying power, asking those questions, it really can nudge companies towards being more open and accountable.
Yeah, I mean, this whole deep dive really shows that the meat and cured meat industry, especially in Italy, isn't this one big negative thing. It's way more nuanced, it's complex, it's evolving. There are significant, sometimes really surprising strides being made in sustainability, driven by science, by smart business decisions, and importantly, by these generational shifts in family businesses. It's a dynamic picture.
Absolutely. And just being informed, understanding these hidden complexities behind your food, that really empowers you, doesn't it, to make choices that feel more conscious, more responsible. You could almost say that understanding where your food comes from, the efforts involved, that understanding is maybe the most sustainable ingredient you can bring to your own plate. So here's something to maybe think about this week. Armed with this deeper knowledge about the whole journey, from farm to charcuterie board, what single small change could you make in your own habits? A change that might just ripple through that supply chain and nudge things, even slightly, towards a more sustainable future.